The New York Giants select Kadarius Toney with the 20th overall pick in the 2021 NFL Draft. Paul Dottino, John Schmeelk. The Giants have two selections on day 2 of the draft. Their own picks in rounds 2 and 3, selections 42 and 76. Paul, let's take a look at who's left on the board. And maybe the biggest surprise is at that linebacker position. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is still on the board at a Notre Dame, that linebacker safety hybrid that really a lot of people thought could be a top 20 pick.
Well, John, I think one of the reasons why he may be there is because people haven't figured out yet exactly how they'd like to use him. We had a lot of discussions about him over the last month or so that some people think he might be better off as a coverage safety instead of being a linebacker, thinking that maybe his frame and his strength may not necessarily play very well up close to the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, he played at under 220 pounds last year, but he could be a good speed fit next to Blake Martinez if the Giants want to go that way. They love those movable pieces. A couple edge players, Paul, still on the board, though. A bunch went right at the end of that first round, but Azeez Ojulari still there out of Georgia, and Carlos Basham also still on the board.
Well, you know how I feel about Carlos Basham out of Wake Forest, a guy who can play on the edge and can also play some 3 technique on the inside, but he is a defensive lineman. Ojulari, more of a guy who's just simply going to be on the edge, but this is a guy who certainly had a lot of production when he was in Georgia, and people looking for a pass rusher will probably want to consider him sometime earlier here in day 2.
All right, let's stick on the defensive line. Christian Barmore out of Alabama, Paul. No defensive tackles in the first round. Not necessarily a surprise. We knew that could have been the case heading in, but he had sack production last year and widely considered the top defensive tackle in the class.
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt when you're strictly looking at a pure defensive tackle, not somebody who's going to be a hybrid and maybe move or slide around a little bit or have versatility. No. Barmore doesn't have versatility, John. Let's make it very clear. What he does is one thing, and he does it well. That is clog up the interior of the defensive line. There just doesn't seem to be right now a real hunger to grab that particular position, because I think we all know he is a quality football player from a quality program.
Yeah, Dave Gettleman does like to draft defensive tackles if you go back to his draft history. The Giants do have a pretty full room right now. One more defensive player / position, Paul. Asante Samuel Jr., probably the consensus top cornerback left. You also have a guy like Tyson Campbell, Ifeatu Melifonwu up in Syracuse. You know, corners get graded very differently team to team, so the Giants could still go there with their pick at 42 if they like.
They could. Of course, Asante Samuel, another one of several players that are expected to go over the course of the next 24 hours or so. I think a lot of people think he is more of a slot corner, though, John, than a boundary. And maybe that's why, he's kind of grouped in a little bit lower than some of the others. But I don't think there's any question that this second group of corners is going to help a lot of people this year. And it wouldn't surprise me if when just 1 or 2 of them go, all of a sudden 3, 4, or 5 of them go in a bunch.
Yeah, there could be a wave. And Paul, let's go to the offensive side of the ball. With the Giants taking a wide receiver in the first round, we're going to push that position aside a little bit. So really the only place I would say would be of need on offense in round 2 would probably be the offensive line. Tevin Jenkins, probably the consensus top guy left, but you have 2 top interior offensive linemen in Creed Humphrey, Landon Dickerson, and then you have all those tackle guard hybrids still left. Guys like Liam Eichenberg, guys like Sam Cosmi that can move inside and outside. So the Giants do have a lot of different options, either in round 2 or 3 to pick an offensive lineman.
For everybody out there who really wants the Giants to enhance their offensive line competition, this is why we told you over the course of the last several weeks, they would be allowed to do so in day 2 or day 3 if they wanted to, but specifically day 2 because it's the sweet spot for this position. And I think all the teams in the league understood that. And that's why so many of them passed on these quality players who are certainly going to be decent, if not better than decent, and maybe just flat out good NFL offensive linemen once they get here.
Yeah, and Tevin Jenkins out of Oklahoma State can play tackle for sure. That's what he did in college. Some think he's a guard, but he's a tough, physical type of player. Seems like someone that could be right up Dave Gettleman's alley. We'll see if the Giants decide to go in that direction in round number 2 or round number 3. For Paul Dottino, I'm John Schmeelk. That's a look at the best available left on the board heading into day 2 of the NFL Draft.